Follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram. Subscribe on YouTube. Don't forget to like. In this video, I've taken several segments of the behind the scenes elements and combined them into one kind of master video. But in the timestamps below, where you will see each section laid out, you'll also see a link to watch the full version of that segment of behind the scenes. So for example, the rehearsal segment is way longer than the segment I put in this video. I just wanted to make this one with all of the things that went into making the film, but there's also an expanded version of each segment in its own video. So let's begin. Guys, let's talk about the anatomy of a short film. One of the ways you can structure the story that you want to tell. So in the anatomy of a short film, we have the plot, which are the actions that comprise the story of the film. The theme, which is our greater concept of what the film is about. Character, all the people or creatures involved in this story. Do you want your audience to love this character or characters, or do you want them to hate the characters? Whenever you're telling a story, it doesn't have to be about the good guy. There's plenty of anti-hero stories. So it's just, who is this story being told about? Who or what is this story being told about? Protagonist is obviously the key character in your characters involved. It is the one whose actions are central to the plot. So in Act 1, what you want to do is you want to introduce a character who has a problem to solve or a desire to fulfill. Then you'll need your inciting incident, which is what sets your character on his quest, his or her quest, to solve the problem or get what they want. Act 2 is when the character actually goes on their quest, where things become complicated or tensions rise. The story shifts somehow in some direction, and the character then has to learn how to complete the quest, complete the mission, or fail. It doesn't matter. They might fail, but the point is the character must learn how to continue going about the story. This then leads to the climax, which is the final showdown with the forces or other characters, our antagonist. And this is where our main character, our protagonist, will either succeed or fail at their quest. And then you wrap it up with Act 3, where the character returns to their world, having changed or not by all the events that they just went through. Anyways, guys, that is the anatomy of a short film. This is how I applied these rules into One More Chance. I hope it helps you guys understand my process of creating the story here. The prop in One More Chance, the pendant that Alfie was giving to Belle, is also kind of a character in the film itself. So after I wrote the story, I had to go and search for a prop to fit this character. Then I went to an antique store in Pasadena and I found a jewelry case for the pendant. Now, since the main character, Ryan's main character, Alfie, was going to fight the antagonist for the pendant, I wanted to keep the jewel inside of a jewel case. This way we wouldn't actually damage the necklace when they're fighting for it. So this required me to make a dummy of the jewelry case, a stunt dummy. So I went to Home Depot and got the supplies to make my stunt dummy. With the help of my tío, I was able to make a replica here. This is our stunt dummy after my tío did his magic. It's funny because I had actually asked him, can I use the saw to make this dummy? I was doing all the measurements and I said, just show me how to operate the saw and I'll make the dummy. And he looked at the paper I had made with all the dimensions and then looked at some of the lumber I had bought and was like, oh, don't worry about it, mijo, I'll do it. And he did it in like 10 minutes. All I had to do was assemble it, get some nails, and put the pieces where they belong. Then there was a process of painting. I had to paint it, get masking tape to match the decal of the original case, and then protect that layer of paint, and then paint over it again until it eventually looked close enough to the actual jewel case that we could use it to drop when we're fighting over it and not worry about damaging the original jewelry case. After doing all that, then I had to work on my levitation effect for the necklace for when it would float up in the air and then Ryan or Alfie would grab the necklace. That's one part of the film that I really wish could have been improved upon because I had worked it out by myself how to get this pendant to float. But when we were on set, I had my cousin Eddie do the lifting of the jewel, and it was really jerky. You can kind of see in the film, you can see when the necklace jerks a little bit, but it's because I didn't have him practice before we got there the day of shooting. I kind of, in my head, I was like, okay, I figured this out, but I didn't take into account that whoever was going to have to do that should also have practiced that levitating technique. So the consequence of that was that it was jerky in film, and every take we did, there was no fixing it. I basically used the take that I thought looked the least worst, even though they all looked bad. Anyways, yeah, that's the process that I went through for our prop in One More Chance. So my goal with the choreography in One More Chance was to keep it simple. I didn't want to make it a very long fight scene. I know people think that if they make a long fight scene, it's going to make their film better. But I wanted to keep it short and sweet because it is a short film. I just wanted the point of Alfie's story to be that he had to fight for this pendant, this necklace that he had bought for Belle. So the goal was to keep it simple. I arranged many sessions with my MMA coach and my jiu-jitsu coach to help me put together this simple choreographed fight scene. Once we got something solid to work with, I filmed it, and I filmed it in a way in which I wanted my camera operator to film it. I'm not sure if it's common in the film industry, at least in Hollywood, for the camera operators to also be there and choreograph their movements with the actors' movements, because I think that's something I would like to have for my next film. Because my camera operator, for some reason, he was doing a lot of camera shake. I had sent him this video recorded of our choreography, and I break it down how I want the camera movement to be, what's supposed to be in frame at what time and at what point in the choreography to dolly out from the starting position. I had also sent this video to Ryan, so he had an idea of what to expect, because I was also going to have, along with myself, my coaches were going to train him how to do this choreography, because he doesn't do mixed martial arts like we do every day. He did have background Taekwondo, which is good because myself and my MMA coach also have background in Taekwondo, so it was a little bit easier to communicate when someone has a little bit of grasp, at least somewhat, in martial arts. You have a point of reference to work with. So then once Ryan got familiar with the techniques, especially with the wrestling I was actually pretty impressed that he was actually able to get the single leg technique down in a pretty timely manner. Then I filmed the choreography with Ryan and added a little bit more detail so that our camera operators would understand what is supposed to be important in the frame, especially towards the end when the jewelry case lands on the ground and they land with the case right in front of them. Again, I cannot stress this enough. I really hope I can get a budget together. I'm paying for all this myself, but I'm really hoping I can save enough money to have whoever my camera operator will be to come along and rehearse with us the camera movement in relationship to the choreography, because I think that'll help out a lot in making sure that the shot comes out the way I expected it to come out, because it really is my fault that I didn't have my camera operator with me when we were doing these sessions, because the camera operator could have also practiced the choreography of the camera movement in relationship to between myself and Ryan. All right, so that was the choreography for One More Chance. Whether or not you've seen the film yet, I still wanted to share with you guys how I went about doing this part of the film. So in One More Chance, there really is only one outfit. I had to buy a pair of each outfit so that I could destroy one set for each character. Now, to create this weathered effect on these clothes, I brewed up some tea. It doesn't really matter, you just get regular, any kind of tea. I also included cinnamon sticks to add a little bit more brown to the color. So I brewed up this tea in these giant pots, and I placed all the clothes in a bucket, and once the tea had been brewed, I poured the tea into these buckets filled with all the clothes, and I would let them sit for about 24 hours so that the color could soak into the fabric. After the clothes have been brewing in the tea, I hang dry them. I let them hang dry for about a day as well. After I had did that, I use a serrated knife to then create random wear and tear on the clothes, and I also used paint to add a little bit more dirt or debris. And the last little touch, I used a torch lighter to burn some of the ends of the clothes, just to add a little bit more, spice to it, I guess. But that's how I did it. That's how you distress the clothes. Serrated knife, a little bit of paint. Torch lighter isn't necessary, but it does help a little bit. And you make sure you brew some tea that the clothes can soak in. Use lighter colors, or just don't use black. I don't think the the distressed look popped out so much on my character's clothes. I think what really helped sell the distressed look for my character was a lot of the distressing with the serrated knife and really putting a lot of wear and tear into random parts of the fabric. Anyways, that's how we did it for One More Chance. If you haven't seen the film yet, it is on the channel, so go ahead and take a look. So one of the most important things for the short film, or just any film in general, is a rehearsal. If you can have your actors as prepared as possible when it comes to shooting day, it's going to make the shoot a lot more smooth because your actors will be familiar with their lines, they'll be familiar with each other and each other's actions and reactions. So doing a rehearsal isn't mandatory, but it is extremely helpful. The production for One More Chance was a nightmare. I lost the camera operator. I was originally supposed to have 2 camera operators, but the day before, one of my camera operators hit me up and said, hey, I can't make it, and made up some excuse, and I never heard from him again. So already off to a bad start, losing some crew. I also had to prepare all of my equipment in the smallest car ever. And all the setup itself took about 2 hours because we had to paint our canvas, that is the scene, the set. We had to light everything properly. I had to figure out where I was going to put my microphone in relationship to the characters because we didn't have a boom operator either. It's literally just, at this point, the crew is me and Vishnu, who is my cinematographer, and Chris, one of my other jiu-jitsu training partners, came in a little later to help out also because he was my behind the scenes guy doing all the footage for day one. And so he kind of became a member of the crew as well, helping out with some things on set. That really helped out as far as me and Vishnu having to set up the rest of the set because, you know, a crew really is important for your film depending on all the elements that are involved in your film. Now, when it comes to the filming, I wanted to get the scene with Eddie and Ryan done first. That was my priority because here's the thing with my cousin Eddie. Everyone loves him. He's hilarious. He's like, I don't know how to explain it. He's like the Mexican version of Jack Black. Not Nacho Libre, I mean like California Mexican, okay? If Jack Black had been born in our family, he basically would end up being Eddie. Anyways, my cousin Eddie cannot remember to save his own life the lines written on any script. And I've worked with him on some other projects, and this has always been the thing with my cousin Eddie, is just that he cannot remember the lines for anything. He couldn't remember them if you put a gun to his head. So what I have to do when I'm working with him on films is that it's all improv. So I had to explain this to Ryan that, hey, my cousin Eddie cannot remember lines. So what's going to happen is, because Ryan, the professional that he is, I was basically telling Ryan that your lines are going to remain the same and Eddie's going to improv his lines. And when they were first meeting too, Ryan, I remember he had came up to me, he was like, man, this guy's hilarious. Where'd you find him? I was like, yeah, I find him. I didn't find him. He's my cousin. Anyways, so I have to explain to Eddie what the scene is about, what is important to happen in the scene. I give him key details of information to remember so that he has a direction to run on. Wrapping up on day one was also difficult because we can't go over the amount of time that we rented the studio for. We literally had to grab all of our equipment from the studio, drag it into the parking lot, and finish packing up in the parking lot so that we didn't get charged for more time. Depending on the studio you rent, sometimes they might be generous and give you more time to pack up. But if not, they will charge you for an extra hour of studio time. And depending on how much the studio costs, it can eat up your budget. That's expensive out here in California. But let's move on to day two. I have to pack up the smallest car again, it's the Honda Fit. And this time I don't have Chris or Eddie to help out on set. I am down now 2 more crew members have been completely eliminated. So now it's just me and Vishnu running around and doing everything. And it is a lot more difficult because, as I discussed in the bloopers segment, there was a lot of outside noise because we were a lot closer to downtown LA. So just all of the sounds of the jungle that is downtown Los Angeles was interrupting in certain parts of our production.
It's fucking World War Z outside. I just work here.
Like the crime's on the other side of LA.
I know, right?
Quick, report something.
I was just gonna say, U.S. citizen. Okay.
So that was another thing that was concerning as far as eating up time because we'd have to pause here and there to wait till like the outside noise would settle down a bit. That's another thing too. because both spaces were very big, there was a noticeable acoustic for both locations. So I think the biggest issue that I have with my short film is that the audio, as much as I tried to remove the reverb, I'm not satisfied with the way the sound quality came out. Also, because of the acoustics in the restaurant, I really could have fixed that problem by changing one line in the story, and I think it would have helped sell it to the audience a lot better. And that one line would have came from the server, where he comes to Barbara or Belle and asks, "Excuse me, miss, can I get you another glass of water?" Or he says something, he offers something to her. What I should have changed that line to is, "Excuse me, miss, but we're closing soon." Because then it would have really sold that it's so empty in here. And also because I didn't have money for extras, and I didn't have friends that would just come and be extras for free for 8 hours. So I couldn't really create an environment in the bar to make it seem like it was packed and that she was alone waiting for her date. So I really could have just made a massive improvement to the story if I would have just had the server change the line to, "We're closing soon, like you're the last person here." But yet again, I have to thank Ryan James for being the professional that he is, because his performance really held the film together. And I am super grateful to have worked with him, and I hope to work with him again in the future. Barbara, again, I've been friends with her for years. I'm sure I'm going to work with her in many films later on. Eddie is my cousin, so you guys at some point will probably see him again. But yeah, that's how the production went for One More Chance. So bloopers are part of any film. I don't think there's a film that exists that doesn't have bloopers or outtakes. Whether you see them or not, there's definitely mistakes and funny moments that happen when making a film. One blooper in specific, though, that I did want to share with you guys actually made it into the cut of the film. So while it was a blooper, it wasn't an outtake because I kept it in the film. And it is where not Barbara, but Belle, when Belle has her last straw with Alfie, her performance for this one line was better than the one I had written, but she ended up bursting into laughter. It was hilarious. So I decided to use that take for the film.
No.
Fuck. That was so good.
I don't know what this laugh was.
I thought it was great.
Sorry.
That's a great character.
Ha! No. Can I just do that? Ha! No.
Yeah, you can do that.
Oh my god.
That concludes it for our behind the scenes for One More Chance. Once again, there are extended versions of each segment to the behind the scenes. If you visit the links down below in the timestamps, you can see the longer versions of each segment if you want to know more details about how those things were done. For more uneducated expert analysis on film and cinema and the creative field in general, follow us on Twitter at ghettoplex_mp4, on Instagram at ghettoplex.mp4, and subscribe to us on YouTube at ghettoplex.